Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. WeatherBrains episode number 1035, 17th of November, 2025. We can see 2026 coming fast. This is the pre-show, by the way. This is the magical time where we do three things. We share boring personal stories, humorous anecdotes, and from time to time, we say some really outrageous things. Whenever we do that, it's typically in the pre show. If you're looking for the actual beginning of the show, move the slider over about 8 minutes and you'll be there. It's getting close to Thanksgiving here. Goodness gracious. We got Christmas tree lightings and all kind of stuff going on here. Tis the season, but let's bring in some of our folks here. I know that we got some folks that are out tonight. I believe Rick Smith is out. I believe Troy Kimmel is out. I believe James Adelot is out. We're going to send them 10 demerits each for being AWOL tonight. But I think everybody else is here. Got Bill back on the show tonight, so
Hey, James.
all is well. All is well.
Hey, Nick.
Hey, Bill and James, how are you?
We're good.
Good.
Can you hear us okay?
I sure can. Can you guys hear me okay?
I'm great.
Yeah. What is this fancy mic you got here? What is this thing?
Yeah, so I got this, on Amazon probably, I don't know, it must have been like two Black Fridays ago, but it's got like a RGB thing. I don't know. It was like $50, but it's just a USB mic. I've heard good things about it. Like people say it sounds good, and so I've just kind of kept it.
Like,
Well, yeah, it does
it's
sound
like one
good,
of
but
those
forget the
mood
sound. You got the
rings.
cool lights coming on there. I mean, come on. I feel
Yeah.
so antiquated here.
You
Well,
need one of
Wow.
those, James, like to glow when you get on a rant or something. It could glow red.
Exactly. Yeah. Wow. Um, no, this is the first one. Like, who makes this thing?
so this brand I think is Fifine. It's Fine, I believe. And they make awesome USB mics, and this actually just USB-C, just plugs right in. I would imagine it probably works on a phone at this case, but
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
yeah, they even have like audio switchboards and everything. I was just looking for a better desktop mic and came across it on Amazon. It had like, I don't know, 1,000 reviews, and I said, well, this should be okay. 1,000 people reviewed it. It's got to be good.
Wow. I need one of those. Yeah. And Bill, you're right. We need it to glow red during tornado warnings or when I'm on a
Yeah, there
rant
you go.
and have a little,
During tornado
spinning
warning, yeah,
red
that's a
light
good
going
idea.
around. Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be good.
We'll work on that.
Wow.
I'll
No,
add that to
that could
the
be.
Alabama Weather Network action plan.
Yeah. I just love my old fat. I've got an old school. This is a Heil PR40, and Bob Heil is just a famous guy in the world of audio. Bob, and this goes way back before your time, but Bob did audio for Joe Walsh. Joe Walsh was with the Eagles and went off on his own, and Bob did all of his stuff. And Bob also makes ham radio gear, which is kind of how I got to know Bob. But he also makes audio gear, and this is his high-end performance mic for vocals, which is the PR40. There's a smaller one, a PR20, which is a handheld, which is what I use when I'm doing live shots or remotes or Alabama football, whatever. That's a Heil PR20, but this is the PR40, and it's a good old XLR, you know, old school. It doesn't light up, but me and this thing have been we have been so many miles together. I just cannot part ways with this PR40. And I've got one at home, and they're pretty pricey. They're high end, and I do radio weather, like 24 radio stations every day, so I'll stay with it. But it's somehow, Bill, we got to get this cool mic worked into the plan here somewhere. That's
Hmm.
too cool.
Christmas present for
Um,
James.
Yeah.
yeah. That's right. In fact, what's funny? This mic was actually a Christmas present. Bill Bubba Bussy of the Rick and Bubba syndicated radio show said, "I need you to meet me out on Highway 280. Got something for you." And I thought it was like, a candy bar or a Rick and Bubba hat or something. But he had a stinking PR40 microphone that he gave me. And these are a little pricey. So
I
goodness,
was gonna
that
say,
was a
I think that PR20 you recommended to me was not cheap either. I want to say it was three or
yeah.
$400.
Yeah, but they're the best. These are high end mics that you'll find in like Blackbird Studios and the high end studios, and musicians are real funny about these mics. I've learned that from follow. Our son used to work up there, and they're funny about these mics, and I am kind of the same way. I mean, it's like you bond with these things, and you know how you sound with them on commercial radio and on social and everything else, and it just becomes a part of you. So
It really
me and my
does.
little PR40, my PR40. But I think, let me see. I heard that I think Bob passed away.
Hmm.
He did a show on, yes, he passed away in 2024, last year. But he did a show for Leo Laporte on his Twit network about audio and ham radio. But he invented the Heil Talk Box, which was used by so many songs by Peter Frampton and Joe Walsh. And nobody knows who these guys are anymore except me and maybe Bill.
Oh, I
Bill, you ever heard of
do.
Peter Frampton and Joe
Yeah.
Walsh?
Yes, I
Oh,
know
In fact,
yeah.
Joe's got a ham radio license. I've met Joe at a ham fest. He's just like some greaser, out there in the flea market, and it was stinking Joe Walsh. Um, but anyway, enough of microphone brains here. Um,
Mhm.
so let's see here. Corey, can you hear us okay?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Uh, yes, sir. All right. Just want to be sure we're all connected here. Just for everybody that's on the line, we are streaming live on YouTube now. The produced podcast begins at the top of the hour. And also at the top of the hour, we're on a local television group here. And we like to disclose that. Not that you would ever say anything regretful, but I'm just saying we are streaming live. We've had a few guests to get on on the pre-show, not aware that we were streaming live. Um, but that's why we say this is the time where we share boring stories, humorous anecdotes, and occasionally we do say outrageous things. So we'll
I've had
start
a
here
few
in
people
30
say outrageous
seconds.
things during the main show, James,
They do. But yeah. But I
especially
don't know what
from
it is.
mountain
People,
towns that shall remain
yeah,
nameless.
yeah. We're not going to go down that path. But people feel freer when you're just streaming on YouTube and you're not on the. Most people listen. So 75% listen instead of watch, and they feel like, well, it's just 25% of the audience. I can say some crazy stuff over here. But we're about to join the TV network right now. Welcome, 7 o'clock Central Time. It's the weekly Monday night weather party. This is Weather Brains. We have no active weather across the region here, so we are good to go. It's going to be a good show. John Gordon's going to join us a little late tonight. He should be here in about 30 minutes or so. But let's get the recorders going here. Let's start track one, and we'll start track two. And here we go in five, four, three, two, one.
You're listening to WeatherBrains. They're kind of a big deal.
That was the voice of Bill Curtis. I mean, how many podcasts open up with a Bill Curtis liner? An Anchorman liner on top of that. So welcome, Weather Brains, the weekly show for weather geeks, dweebs, nerds, dorks, and weenies. This is episode number 1035, and it's hard to believe we turn 20. We are 20 years old in like a couple of months at the end of January. So we're not the best weather podcast in the universe, but we are the longest running podcast in the universe. And we got some all-stars on the show tonight. I see Jen Naramore. Jen, where are you this evening? Where's
Hello.
Waldo? Where's Jen?
Where's Jen? I am in Louisville at Hotel Gordon. My host is not here right now,
I was going to say,
but
how are you there and he's not there?
he's hanging out at that emergency management thing, and he'll have a story about what he's doing there. But so he left me here all by myself, holding down the Gordon Hotel, and I'll be the one introducing Corey and Jeff tonight. But Bill's gonna also have an introduction for us tonight. But yeah, I made my way out of Virginia. Amazing trip. We went to 17 places in a week. totally doing the chasing tornado history thing, and a lot of information, a lot of neat people out there that we met and been able to network with. So I'm making my way back north to try to get home for the holidays.
Awesome. Well, welcome to Kentucky, to the Gordon Hotel. I think while he's not there, you should poke around and let's try and find some kind of skeletons in a closet or something. You know there's got to be some gold in there somewhere, knowing
You
John and his
know it.
personality here.
That's right.
I see the commissioner. The commissioner is joining us from Oklahoma. Kim, how are you? It's always good to see you. You bring some class to the show.
Well, that's very generous. It's very generous. If I bring class, then I'm grateful for that. Sometimes I feel like I'm the one who brings the sass, but I'll try to be the class tonight. I'll try to bring the class. I'm doing
Sass,
great.
not class. All right.
That's
That's our
not
show
class.
title
Show
right
show
there.
title. Show title. We've got it. Uh,
It's in the running. It's in the running.
uh,
Early contender. So yeah, I'm doing great, guys. It is beautiful here, and anytime we have like legit fall, as I've said on the show the last couple of weeks, I've just been like crossing my fingers for legitimate fall. We've gotten it, and that's been just a big bolster for the spirits. Got the kids outside this weekend, had a lot of time in the fall leaves and the crystal blue sky, and oh my gosh, and last week with all the space weather, wasn't that amazing? I know that we've got a lot to talk about tonight, but I wanted to bring that up. That was just such a wonderful event for so many, and just a beautiful surprise. So lots of joy over here.
we had auroras into the Florida Panhandle that were very, very vivid and colorful. And goodness, we'll talk to our guests on the Gulf Coast here in just a second. But yeah, that was and I think everybody that's on the show and they listen to this, they're all geeks and dweebs and they love stuff like that. It was just stunning. And I love the fact that our friends at the Space Weather Prediction Center, they were on top of this thing, Kim, that they're good.
Mhm.
They've got the information out. They gave us a heads up, and by golly, it happened just like they said it was going to happen. So that was just incredible. We got Bill Murray. So Bill, you or Jen, who's going to start the introductions here? I'll let one of you take over. Bill, you want to take over?
Yeah, I guess I can introduce Nicholas. Is that okay with you, Jen? You want to do it that way?
Yeah, let's do it that way.
Okay, good. Yeah, I can't wait to get into our guest weather brains tonight. But tonight's guest panelist is someone whose passion for weather started early, 5 years old. Weak tornado sparked a lifelong fascination with the atmosphere, and that intrigue never faded. Today, he channels that enthusiasm into his work. He's the weekend meteorologist at WHIO in Dayton, a true weather geek at heart. He's recently reached an exciting career milestone by earning his NWA digital and TV seals, marking important steps forward in his broadcast meteorology career. Nicholas Dunn, welcome to the show tonight. Nick, can you hear us? I think we've lost
We were
connection
bragging. We
with
were
Nicholas.
bragging
I
on
sure
his
can. I'm
on
not
his
sure
fancy
what's happening
microphone.
there, but hopefully you guys can hear me okay.
There we go. Now we got you back. Yeah, I hope you heard my glowing
Can you still
recommendation
hear
there,
me okay?
Nicholas. Yeah.
I don't think he can hear a word we're saying. I don't think he can hear anything,
Well,
which is
I just
probably a good
Well,
thing.
I'm not sure what's going on here.
yeah, we hear you fine, but you can't hear us. All right. So Jen, I'll let you introduce our Mobile contingent, and we'll come back to Nick.
That sounds like a plan. So, as we mentioned, John Gordon is, out gallivanting in downtown Louisville. He's hanging out with Bruce Thomas tonight. John is in charge of the weather wheel at the International Association of Emergency Management. So, let me just, it's a hoot. He had a little outfit on and everything, I'm just saying. So, we'll see how he shows up here in about 30 minutes. But he gave me the wonderful opportunity to introduce our guest weather brains tonight. First of all, we have Corey Bunn as a full-time operational meteorologist with Coastal Weather Research Center. Corey prepares daily forecasts and also has the responsibility of issuing severe weather warnings. And he also maintains the company website, assists in hurricane forecasting operations too. Corey joined the Coastal Weather Team in 2012 after completing his undergraduate degree in meteorology at the University of South Alabama. Corey, welcome to Weather Brains.
Good evening.
And we also have sitting next to you Jeff Medlin, founder and CEO of Medlin Meteorological Consulting LLC. Was in the National Weather Service after a distinguished 36-year career. Thank you for your service. This tenure included 8 years as meteorologist in charge and 20 years as science and operations officer in Mobile, Alabama. Jeff today is the severe and winter weather outlook meteorologist for Coastal Weather Research Center and is also an adjunct professor at the University of South Alabama, instructing and developing advanced courses like physical meteorology, atmospheric dynamics, tropical, and satellite meteorology. Jeff, welcome to WeatherBrains.
Thank you for having us.
You bet, guys. So, Bill, do you want to introduce Nick again, or do we want to go into the end? What do you want to do? You tell
Yeah,
me what
Nick,
to do.
can you hear us now? That's the
I
question.
I sure can.
Yay!
Hopefully you guys can hear and hopefully see me okay now.
Well,
We
you
sure
didn't miss
can.
much, just my glowing introduction of you, Nick. But we're thrilled to have you with us tonight. And I hinted at your first weather experience, but go into detail and tell us a little bit more about that first thing that turns you on to this amazing thing that we're all in love with.
Yeah, so right around the age of 5, it was about a 2, 3 o'clock in the morning tornado. And James, I know you are more than familiar with those down in the state of Alabama, but up here in Ohio, we don't always seem to get those. But my mother woke me up and said, "Hey, we need to go to the basement." Could hear the sirens sounding. The windows were open, and we could hear a little bit of some crazy stuff going on out there. So we hurried downstairs and we just kind of spent the night there. And then we lost power, and we just decided we're just gonna all chill in the basement as a family. And we decided that that's where we were just gonna be. And we woke up in the morning, had some minor tree damage. Just my swing set was flipped over, and instead of being sad and upset, I remember telling my mom just briefly, "Mom, this is cool. What happened here?" And so from that moment on, I've just had a fascination with weather across the board. I currently am a weekend meteorologist at WHIO TV in Dayton. And this has been my dream job. From that moment on, I wanted to be a TV meteorologist, and it took me some time, some trial and error on things, but some things came together, and I completed my certificate from Penn State University, and I was awarded the two seals from the National Weather Association. And I'm probably one of the biggest weather geeks that you will find in this part of Ohio. I have two weather stations out back. One is a Davis, one is a Tempest. I do lots of school visits, lots of community visits, and weather's just my passion. That's what I eat. That's what I eat. That's what I sleep. That's what I breathe. I enjoy all facets of weather across the board. So, and I am absolutely thrilled to be here. This has been one of my favorite weather podcasts across the board. Of course, there's not very many of them out there, but I watch this every week when I get a chance to, and you guys do a fantastic job, and I'm just thrilled to be a part of it here. But um, you know, Ohio is no stranger to tornadoes. We broke a record last year, most in one year, and I hope we don't break that again anytime soon. But that was quite interesting as a first year TV meteorologist, that's for sure.
So, Nick, we get a lot of folks that ask us, and you're in a unique position because you have both. Talk about your Davis and your Tempest weather stations. Compare and contrast them now that we're coming up on the Christmas season, because a lot of people want to know, how to, how to buy for their friends and family because they're the ones that are interested in weather.
Yeah, so I will say that in terms of the Davis, I kind of lean on that one when it comes to rainfall totals and wind speed. That one also I have it connected through the community weather observation program, so I can pull that data into our TV graphics at work. I don't show it on TV, obviously for obvious reasons, but I think it's just kind of cool to see that. And then the Tempest, I love it for lightning, and I just saw that they got a new and improved version out, so I've not tried that one yet. But rest assured, I plan to. In terms of which one is better, I do like the Tempest a little bit better overall. I think the app is a little more user friendly. It offers quite a bit. But if you're looking for something that is more rugged, more accurate, when in those extreme weather events, I think the Davis is most certainly the way to go for me. And I have the Vantage View is the Davis that I have. I know that's kind of like the home weather station standard, if you will, from Davis. I'm not an ag kind of guy, but there's a couple folks in my viewing area that we cover on TV that have reached out and said, "Hey, I have this Davis Vantage too. What are your thoughts on that?" And I obviously think Davis is the industry standard, but I know Tempest also has a lot of things to offer if you're looking for more like a smart home kind of thing. If you're into that kind of thing, that would be the way to go, at least in that route. But I like both of those, and I meant to also touch on this real quick too. But in terms of the digital seal for me, was really important to get. Over the last 10 years, I've seen a lot of things change online and how weather's presented, how weather's communicated. And for me, getting that was really important because I want to be a person that provides clear, concise, easy to understand, no matter if you're 5 years old or if you're 90 years old. I do visits with all ages, including within that age range. And, one thing that I've always walked away with is somebody has said, hey, I never understood how this works, but thanks to you explaining it, it makes a lot more sense. I try to use social media for good. I try to use digital platforms for good because sometimes it's hard to fit everything in a standard 3 or 3.5 minute weathercast, and so I feel digital's a good way to kind of branch that out, and the more reputation stuff you can build there and follow along. I think there's some more good that can be done and that can come out of that, but I hope to only build on that as I continue to move along.
Well, congratulations on getting your seal, and I applaud you for getting your digital seal. That was something that was really ahead of its time when Miles Musio conceived of it 11 or 12 years ago. I love mine. It's on the wall here. I'm number 101, and I will always treasure that. And I'm so thrilled to see that we now have a flood of people coming in and applying for it, especially TV meteorologists like you that see the value of having both. That was sort of a foreign concept in 2014, and now it's not. And thank you for doing that. So the NWA is going to make it easier for TV meteorologists to hold both here in coming months, and hopefully Kim will be a part of that with time. So I know I'm doing everything I can to make that a thing too. So I hope more TV meteorologists like James Spann might hold both
Whoop,
here before long.
whoop.
I don't know if I can get a TV seal or not, James. I guess I could now. I couldn't back then, but I guess maybe I could now. I guess maybe I can
I
go
don't
the
know
other
how.
way.
The lines are blurred. The lines are all blurred.
But anyway, well, it's nice to have you. So, Nicholas, now I have to deputize you as a panelist. So, you are in charge. If you don't ask questions, you won't get asked back. So, make sure you ask good and super questions tonight of our very special guests from Mobile. So, thank you for
You
being
got
part
it.
of the show tonight. And I'll turn it over to Jen, and
All
let you come in and pinch hit for Mr. Gordon until he walks in some weird costume here in a few minutes.
right. Yes, that sounds good. We're going to start off with Corey. Corey, let's talk about how you first got interested in weather. What gave you the bug?
So I'm from a small town up in northeast Alabama, Boaz, Alabama, on Sand
Now, wait,
Mountain.
wait, 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 wait a minute. That's not a small. That is not a small town. I mean, Boaz is a thriving metropolis, and all I got to say is, once a pirate, always a pirate. All right.
True
You
story.
didn't give him a chance to fill it in, James.
Yeah.
You
Well,
usually leave in the blank there. So could you have filled in the blank there, Corey?
So yeah, that's a lot of people do not know. Like I tell people I'm from Boaz, and they're like, "Wait, what?" Or if they do know Boaz, they go, "Oh, that's where the outlets were,"
Yeah,
because they're
were.
no
Yeah.
longer there. Keyword were.
But a lot of good stuff going on up on Sand Mountain.
Right, yeah,
Albertville, Boaz,
that whole area,
Arab,
in Gunnersville, like Gunnersville and Arab.
Gunnersville. Yeah, Gunnersville.
Um, and so my
Well,
interest was always in,
the community college up there is incredible. We spent some time at Sneed State, and it's just outstanding what they're doing. It is just great. I love Boaz. So it's not a small town, okay? It is a thriving community on Sand Mountain in an amazing part of this state that's growing very quickly.
We're
So
gonna have to
there we
start
go.
calling it the Quad Cities or something, James. I mean, that's getting to be something else up there. Plus, they make some pretty good tomatoes up there on Sand Mountain too.
Yeah, that's mainly Chandler Mountain. That's closer to
Oh,
Gadsden
okay.
and Steele.
I can't claim Sand Mountain tomatoes. That's what my uncle always
No,
told me.
no, 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 no. Chandler Mountain. That's the tomato capital of the
Okay,
state.
all
But
right.
with the Space Command, everything coming to Huntsville, it's gonna boom up there. So I
All
didn't
right,
mean to
I'm gonna have to go
sidetrack
over
the
here and do. I'm gonna have
conversation.
to go over there and do some
Yeah.
tomato comparisons next year and see if you're right. All right.
So yeah, I mean, growing up on Sand Mountain, it was always about severe weather. I remember sort of like Nick as a young kid. I mean, anytime we lived out on the countryside until I was about 7 or 8, and then we moved to the city of Albertville. But I continued going to school at Boaz City Schools, and um, just always found it, excuse me, always just kind of wrapped up in the severe weather and tornadoes. And every time there was tornado siren that went off during the daytime, I would always run outside, which is a big no-no. But I mean, someone who's very interested in weather, that's kind of now at night, I'd always wake up and turn on the TV. And sometimes it depends on what you were using back in those days. I mean, I know some of our TVs had antenna, and we could pick up James Spann, uh,
Ooh,
picking up, and
wow.
so I was able to watch James on TV a lot back in my younger days. And uh, then and then you bring up Sneed State. So I graduated from Boaz, and I said, one of the goals in high school ever since my freshman year was to be the top 10 of my class. And I was number 10 when I graduated high school. And Sneed State said, "Hey, because you're in the top 10, you can come here for a full ride." And I was like, "Well, that makes the most sense." And so at the time of going to Sneed State, I was going into engineering. And I'd always had a passion for meteorology, but I didn't took a tour, and this was well before they got the program they have now at UAH, but I just didn't feel right. And so I said, I'm going to do engineering. Well, then I was talking with my English teacher, and her daughter was at the University of South Alabama doing meteorology. And I found out that way about the meteorology program at South Alabama. And so the idea is to start in the spring of '09 after going a tour, and in June or July of 2008. And when I stepped foot in the Coastal Weather Research Center, which, as you see now, has the Alabama Power name attached to it, I was sold. And ever since then, I came to South, had to get acquainted with moving from Boaz down to the Mobile area, but I've enjoyed it, and it was a nice program back then. It's grown, so is campus, but yeah, that's kind of how everything started. And then graduated from South in 2011 after transferring in, and then came back in October of 2012 to take the position as an operational meteorologist at Coastal Weather. And then with the retirement of our director in May of 2022, I took over as manager, and hoping the next year or two that I can gain the title as director. So, but yeah, that's kind of the start where everything kind of led me to where I am now.
That's awesome. Before we get more in depth into, the program at South Alabama and then also the Coastal Weather Research Center and how everything works, I do want to hop over to Jeff and get your story. Where did your interest come from? Why did you like, I'm going to have a career with the National Weather Service? How did everything come about for you?
Well, I'm from Wilmington, North Carolina, a small town outside of Wilmington called Leland. And from a very young age, my grandmother and she lived about 30 miles inland. And every time we had a rain, sleet, snow case, we would be calling one another all hours of the night. So I credit her with getting me interested in weather. And it's all I ever considered. It's all I ever wanted to do. So I went to NC State and got my degree there. But about a year before I graduated, I got the equivalent of a student trainee meteorologist position down in Columbia, South Carolina. And upon graduation, I went to Cincinnati, Charleston, West Virginia, Norman, Oklahoma, and came to Mobile as the first Sioux in 1994. I did all that in 5 or 6 years, and thought I was on the 5-year plan in Mobile in 1994, and I'm still here. It's a great place to live, never lacks for any weather. Had a great time, love it. It's all I breathe, sleep, or eat. And by the way, Nick, I did make a stop over in Cincinnati, so I'm very aware of the people in Dayton. Good group of folks there, and just don't say the word Xenia.
Yeah.
1974, wild weather, wild times in the late 70s. But just seeing the snow, the severe weather, the coastal storms got me into it, and even today, and I retired back in 2022, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. I figured 36 years was enough. And during my retirement party, I had gotten a letter from Dr. Bill here at the Coastal Weather Research Center, and asking if I was interested in post-employment or post-retirement employment with Coastal. I hadn't had a lick of experience in the private sector other than briefing local, state, and federal officials, and started out with the tropical, and did that for 2 or 3 years, and then morphed into kind of what SPC and WPC do, but on a 3-state scale. And it has been so fun using ensembles, for predictability. How far can we push those outlooks out? I still believe strongly that there is value in deterministic forecasts and not averaging 35 models together. I know there's times when you can do that, but there's times when you can know when to hold them and when to fold them and make some good forecasts and give people your best shot. And that's the big difference in the private sector and the public sector that I've seen so far in my 3 or 4 years, and just kind of got my hands full with that and the teaching, and just started a consulting business as an expert witness. So in short, weather's all I ever wanted to do, and I'm still doing it.
Well, we're really glad you still are doing it, Jeff. It's been 9 years since we had you on the show. It's been way too long.
Rip
I,
current.
I know we talked a ton about rip currents because we're still losing way too many people
Mm-hmm.
on the Gulf Coast, and it's a huge part of what we talk about every day on the Alabama Weather Network. We hit it hard every single day because we want our people to focus on that. But every single year we have these tragedies, where we lose a lot of visitors, especially
That's right.
to the Gulf Coast. And it's not because, we have cases where we hear resort areas don't want to talk about it. They don't want to educate their visitors because they don't want them to understand their threats. But that's not the case in Alabama. We want to educate our visitors, and we want to, and in Northwest Florida, we want them to know there are, these things, and the resort operators, want them to understand the dangers. So I know we're going to talk about that tonight a lot, and I want to get into that, some with you, and I want to get into some specific tide things. I need your help, Corey, on some things. But go back, Jeff. My formative hurricane was Frederick. And I know it was real important to him too. So talk about that hurricane for a minute.
Frederick.
Yeah.
I wasn't here
1979.
during Frederick,
But
but
I mean, I know you weren't there, but you probably, ran
yeah,
into it bumps
Frederick.
being the Sioux.
Yeah, Frederick. I mean, until Ivan and Katrina, Frederick, if you said that word, that was like saying Xenia in Ohio, right? With the analogy to tornadoes, it was what set the standard. It had the 100 and I believe 128-mile-an-hour wind gust at the top of the Dolphin Island Bridge, heavily damaged the bridge. That's why the bridge is so beautifully constructed now, and what we have is beautiful, absolutely. But yeah, that was the gold standard until the Pandora's box opened up and we got into that multi-decadal cycle for the last 20 or so years, 20, 25 years. But yeah, Frederick did a lot of damage here. And I believe one thing I've always was told, even though I wasn't here, is that more people were hospitalized due to chainsaw injuries from Frederick, trying to clear away their own debris than the storm itself. But it was a heavy wind damage producer, and will always be remembered. And of course, we've, since Ivan and Katrina have had Sally and numerous other storms, but not to that extent of, what Frederick did right here in Mobile.
I was really proud to, hear that Alabama is number one in something besides football in terms of these fortified roofs. And I can't say that this week, Kim, based on what happened Saturday. But given, and our good friends in Oklahoma have been awfully gracious not to rub that in. But anyway, we're leading the nation in putting these fortified roofs in, and I think Hurricane Sally had a lot to do with that, and some other great programs. And so, talk about that for a second, Jeff, and Corey, you jump in too. And then Corey, I want you to talk about Dr. Williams for a minute. And both of you had him sort of as a mentor a little bit. And I don't think we've given him the treatment on this show that he really deserves as an Alabama weather legend.
Yeah, so you bring up Hurricane Sally and the whole fortified roof thing. That was my first taste of tropical weather. As from 2008 to 2020, there wasn't really much in the Mobile area for tropical cyclones. I mean, the one I remember was Gustav, as I was coming over the I-65 bridge, and I was like, it's a little windy. If it was, 10, 20 miles an hour more, this would be extremely dangerous. But campus did not close. I have to believe that was Labor Day. So I was driving back on that Monday, and campus was like, we'll be in session tomorrow. So I went up and visit family and came back to be able to go back to class. But Hurricane Sally I remember that very well because it was the second time I spent the night at Coastal Weather. And I woke up 3:30 on a Tuesday morning, got to Coastal Weather at 6:30 that morning, and was up until 7 o'clock Wednesday night, when I finally was able to go back to my house in Fairhope and was like, oh, this is what hurricanes do. And then learned about how hard it is to battle with insurance companies to get a new roof. And the problem is if everyone remembers Sally, well, a month later you had Zeta. So whatever damage we had with Sally, I was actually at the time with technology, we were able to do some things from home. And my boss, Pete McCarty at the time, I said, look, I need to stay home and make sure, I can mitigate any more leaks, from the damage from Sally with Zeta. Fortunately, we didn't have any more, but I remember sitting in my kind of office space, just watching the storm as it was moving on shore and across Mobile County. And all of a sudden I heard this loud noise. And I mean, it kind of terrified me because I was like, what was that? And so I thought something had came through the roof. So I went up in the attic to try to check and see, do we have any more leaks? And then the noise happened while I was up in the attic, and it was shingles flopping up and then coming back down and slapping the plywood. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. So me being the kind of weather person I am, my first instinct was, hey, let's go outside. And so I went outside, and next thing I know, there's shingles flying around me. And my wife comes out and says, hey, you need to get inside. Like, this is too dangerous. And so, but fortunately, in February of 2021, we were able to get one of those fortified roofs on our house. But yeah, we had a roof damage for 5 months after those two storms, after battling with the insurance company wanted to repair, but after a third inspection, they said, oh, wait, yeah, you need a new roof. And so, it worked out in our favor. A lot of people, it did not. But yeah, that was my first taste of spending the night at, or second taste of spending the night at coastal weather. My first taste was the 2014 ice storm that happened in Mobile. And anytime you get winter weather here, it shuts things down very quick, as we learned earlier this year.
I was gonna say you're gonna have to talk about that snowstorm a little bit because I
Yeah.
was just reading about it in this WeatherWise magazine that came in the mail today. So that was a fun memory from 2025. But talk about Dr. Williams for a second, and then I know
Yeah.
we've got
So,
you want to
Dr.
get
Bill
into the main line of
Williams is
questioning here.
Dr. Bill Williams is the one that kind of deserves all the credit for what you see in the background here and for the meteorology program at the University of South Alabama,
Yeah.
at least the start of it. Um, he started the Coastal Weather Research Center in 1988 on campus here, and with a goal of getting the meteorology program. And in 1991, I believe it came under the Department of Geography with a concentration in meteorology. And then in 99, when got the full accreditation, and at that time we had one student that first year. And then by the time I came to South in 2008, we had 120 students. And nowadays we're at, 50 to 60. But Dr. Bill was instrumental in not only starting the program, but the Coastal Weather Research Center and just his knowledge. And he still does the radio. He's still doing the
And
radio.
marine forecast.
Yeah, he's still doing
Dr. Bill's marine weather.
yeah,
Yeah.
all that stuff is, his his baby, and he still comes in occasionally to the office. I mean, he's still passionate about the weather and his joy in it. And another name that I always like to mention and kind of was a mentor as well is Dr. Keith Blackwell.
Mhm.
He started the synoptic meteorology program here at South Alabama, and I think there's a lot of South grads that learned very, very instrumental knowledge from him. And as someone who has got recently more involved in the tropical meteorology side of forecasting over the last few years, I wish I had 10% of what that man knows with tropical meteorology, because it was
Oh, there's no
amazing to work
question.
under him. But yeah, both Dr. Bill and Dr. Williams and Pete McCarty and even Andrew Murray, they were all kind of instrumental in, getting coastal weather where it is today. And now I'm kind of running the ship, and we were able to add Jeff at the beginning of 2022, and he's really been an instrumental part of our staff here. So yeah, that's kind of a little bit about
And
that.
Corey, can the public access Dr. Williams marine forecasts anywhere?
The
Are they all private?
Well, so he has a website, and it's the Dr. Bill Williams Marine website. I think a lot of that is, the way he set that up was it was mainly offshore forecasts from NOAA about the the fishing. Everybody seems to go to that website to get the offshore forecast for the fishing. And I can tell you if that site goes down or if it's not, I get phone calls. Hey, what's going on? Your site's not updating. We need to know the wave heights so whether or not we can go fishing. Now, I know he's on FM Talk 106.5, and he's kind of got his own little deal there where he has a weather scale. I think if you get perfect weather conditions, it's like a 2.0, which is very rare to get a 2.0 in Mobile, Alabama. So if you get a 2.0, you got very good weather conditions.
I tell you, Keith was a good friend, and I met
Mhm.
him on the floor of the teletype room at the National Weather Service in Birmingham the night that Hurricane Allen came ashore in South Texas in 1980. And I knew that I had a kindred spirit because I left my job at the theater that night to drive over to 11 West Oxmoor Road just to scarf anything that the Weather Service might throw in the trash can. And I had competition that night. So, anything that any Difax chart or any teletype that went in the trash can was fair game. So I knew then I had a best friend after that. Then I just love him like a brother. But thank you for sharing all that. I know you got that Alabama Power sign behind you, Corey. They are a driving force for economic development in the state of Alabama, and that's huge that they're supporting what you do. Talk about their support, and then I'll get out of the way. I have one really huge question later that I need your help on, and I'll let John and Jen tell me when I can ask that. But talk
Okay.
about Alabama Power support for your entity for a minute, because I know that's important, and they deserve a lot of credit for a lot of things they do.
Yeah, Alabama Power has been an outstanding client of ours for several years now. I mean, I think even back when Coastal Weather started, and when Coastal Weather first started, it was more of a Gulf Coast thing, and then Dr. Bill got Alabama Power on board, and now we pretty much, assist them in weather forecast, hazardous weather conditions, anything they really need. We do outreach support with them. They almost every other summer they call us wanting us to give them a talk. Me and Jeff kind of assist in that, but the Alabama Power name is now attached to the probably the longest name you'll see, the Alabama Power University of South Alabama Coastal Weather Research Center. That's a mouthful. So that all came about because Alabama Power appreciated what Coastal Weather has done for them over the last several years. And so they approached us in 2019 about giving Coastal Weather a monetary gift through their foundation. And so, the goal now, when I was a student here, meteorology was all in the same building. Now, as John's probably aware of this, it's not. It hasn't been for we've been in this building for 5 years now, and that's how Alabama Power got naming rights to Coastal Weather. So that's the Alabama Power name. But the good news is we finally got approval to move meteorology in this building. And so hopefully, if not by the beginning of next fall, maybe the spring of 2027, meteorology will be co-located with Coastal Weather Research Center once again, and that's gonna go a long way for our students. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of where the Alabama Power names got attached, and every time they get a new higher up, they bring them to Coastal Weather because this is a very unique operation. We are on the university's campus, but we're self-supporting. I am a university employee, but all of our funds come in from our subscribers to our weather service products that we're generating out on a daily basis.
I'm turning the interview over to our friend John Gordon, who has now come in here lightning fast from downtown Louisville. Hi, John.
Guys. So I'm doing this once for James Spann. Okay. So this is my
Go,
Riddler
go.
hat.
Oh.
It's outstanding. That's
so
a good
I'm
look.
not going
That's
to
a good
wear a
look.
bow tie because I needed Jen to tell me how to put a bow tie on. I didn't even know how to do it. Anyway,
Wow.
so I'm glad to see my friends from Mobile. So one thing, Corey and Jeff, let's talk about the word that's hard to say, CCAPS. When did CCAPS begin? Tell us a little bit about that.
CCAPS. Oh, I think we're,
04, I think.
yeah, I know we had a lull there with COVID,
It was 04.
but I think it was '04. I think we had our 19th CCAPS last year. But I know there was a 2 or 3 year gap with COVID, and then Andrew Murray was kind of the faculty member at large there that ran that the last couple of years, and then he departed in 2021. And so, yeah, I think 2020 was the first year it was canceled, and we brought it back last year, last year or the year before, I believe. And
04. Jeff Medlin was one of the first speakers. That's where I first really met Jeff, and I was one of the speakers. That's right. Mr. Spann has been a keynote multiple times.
yes.
Just
So-
don't make me follow John Gordon. Whatever you do, do not make me follow John Gordon. No,
Yeah, I think
that's the worst.
the first year I remember James being here was also the same year we had Reed Timmer. And I mean, the students were ecstatic about that. I mean, the broadcast students were chasing James around, and the storm chasers and all the other ones were chasing Reed Timmer around. And I mean, and a lot of people don't realize that CCAPS It stands for Southeastern Coastal Atmospheric Processes Symposium. Another mouthful. I don't know where we come up with these acronyms around here, but we make them work. Uh, but that's a student ran symposium. We get, there's a faculty member that oversees students doing it, but the students do the majority of the work. And I was one of those students in 2008 that was assisting with putting that together. And so they meet with the faculty member at large on that and decide who they want to bring in as guest speakers year after year. And we get them from all aspects of meteorology. We kind of try to get one in the broadcast scene and then one in maybe a research area, one in kind of the professional private, sector, and then maybe one that you can't, I think last year we had Tony Rice with astronomy down here, and that was always an interesting topic. So, that's CCAPS, and John Gordon's kind of the spokesperson for that. I think you've been to every CCAPS that we've had.
I have. I've actually been to
think
everyone.
there
And
was-
look in the chat. Look who's going to be a keynote this year that's on WeatherBrains, everybody. Stand up.
Hey.
Yeah, it'll be me. I'll be part of it this
Oh,
year.
wow.
Oh, good.
And I was supposed to be one of your keynotes back in 2020, and I felt so awful. But it was 2020, and that's how that was. The timing for that poor conference, it couldn't have been any worse. Just right when the world shut down, and the kids probably had the worst time scrambling. But this is long overdue. I'm excited to come down and see what this conference is all about.
Yeah.
That's
So-
spectacular news.
That's great news. Kim's a rock star. You guys are going to love that. So, all right, Jeff, most people don't know this. You are one of the original radar instructors in Norman, Oklahoma. Were you not? Tell everyone what you did in Norman's, Oklahoma.
That is correct. I mean, that was okay. I've been to a lot of great places and met a lot of great people, and I wouldn't take back any one of them, but that situation will never be repeated again. There were about 32 to 34 instructors, and it just so happened they ranged in age from about 25 to 45. Everybody was highly motivated. We were rotating 3 classes of 24 through each 6 weeks before they cut the course back to 4 weeks. I even see it online today where I saw something on LinkedIn the other day where someone was complaining about budgets and putting your money where your mouth is. And why don't we invest in that type of training like we had in those wonderful glory years of the early 90s? And I know times got tough and appropriations got tough, but we changed a generation of people and how they use the pre-storm environment with vertical wind shear and thermodynamic instability to verify the storm structure that they see when the storms initiate and begin to subsequently evolve. And that just really changed a whole generation of folks. They were able to get out into these forecast offices and make a big difference. And back then that was with what we had 4-bit 88 data, then 88D data, then it became 8-bit, then it became super res, just to let you know how far it's come. So there were certain sampling issues that had to be gone over for people to understand, like, for example, when a TBS signature is embedded within a mesocyclone, it would look very different in 4-bit data than it does in high res. Okay, so, they would have to know which scale of the vortex and what part they were looking at. So, these are the kind of things that opened, I think, people's mind and changed radar warning and forecasting back in the 60s and 70s and most of the 80s from a checklist to actually using the scientific process and basing decisions on data.
Yeah. Yeah, Jeff was a great instructor there. So at the end of this 4 weeks, you got a good old-fashioned radar proficiency test, did we not, Jeff, at the very end?
We did get a test. We got a test on every section of the course. We had what we called a pup lab, and people were put through scenarios. And then when they returned back to the station, they had to have a test for proficiency on how to configure the radar settings in real time. Like if you were switching the velocity measurement increment or changing the rainfall relationship, they had to know how to do those things in order to extract the best data they could possibly get from the radar. And there was a high standard then. I'm not saying it's not there now, but back then that was new business and a new way of doing business, and it changed a generation of warning forecasters.
Yeah, yeah. I got to go through it in the late 80s in the test, and one of my instructors, how many people know this name? Les Lemon.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I mean, the lemon technique. Look that up, WeatherBrain fans. That's your homework.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that was the bomb when the lemon technique came out. Wasn't that way ahead back when it came, Jeff? I mean, a long time ago.
Yes, and and for the first time, and instead of the wrist technique where you cranked up the radar dish and go through the elevation angles, you were having to equate that to a 4-panel and looking for mid-level overhang out over the low-level inflow side of the storm. So it was that change you had to link what we already had into this new paradigm and a new way to envision it and see it.
Right. So another cool thing you had, Jeff, you were the first science officer in the Mobile office. What's it like to be Mr. Spock in your office?
Well, I mean, I had a great group of people the whole time I was there. I had great support around me. I mean, I couldn't have asked for anything better. And it just so, happened that I had different people that were talented in different areas. The mission changed, in the very beginning. We had these research institutes that every SUE was supposed to align themselves with, like ours was over at Florida State, the Cooperative Institute of Tropical Meteorology. Of course, I had South Alabama in my own backyard, and I did a lot of things with the folks here. But, that funding, eventually dried up for all of the cooperative institutes around the Weather Service. And the type of operational research we did became very homegrown, based on necessity and need. But then it took a more turn that I wasn't really in favor of. It became more nationally mandated. And I think as the SUE here for 20 years, and I'm a SUE here for any SUE, they know what their staff needs. More than someone above them who doesn't live there. Okay, so it's not a one size fits all. You have to look at what's going on. You have to assess the strengths and weaknesses of your own staff to determine what they need. And I know you had one of the best SUEs you could ever possibly have there in Louisville, and in fact, he was sort of a mentor to me in the early days, and so that's good stuff. And it was interesting. The staff was one aspect of it, and working with folks here at South, and I've actually got several other universities I wrote papers with some of the professors there as well. But it's like it shifted from operational research and training to just kind of training and filling in on shift.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. So for the listeners, what does a science officer supposed to do when you were there? Just tell our listeners, what is this? That's their role.
The reason I became a SUE, I was at the AMS student chapter meeting at NC State, and a guy by the name of Dr. Louis Uccellini walked in the door to give us a presentation on jet streaks while I was a student. And he said, hey, we have this thing called the Weather Service Modernization. It's called MARD. And one of the positions we're going to have is called a Science and Operations Officer. And their primary role is to liaise what's going on in the universities, distill that, and teach it to the folks that you lead. And I'm like, wow, that is exciting. So that's that's the approach I always took. Um, so that it to me is it. And you combine that with the necessary training you need to do. And then of course you have, leadership principles as well. I believe it's important to set the example, be there during the high impact events. So I always tried to do that, and probably in 20 something years averaged 30% shift work, and that excluded the high impact events. And that's what it took to get it done.
That's a great segue. You just set up the volleyball net. So let's
Spike.
talk about, yeah, this is a spike. Here we go, baby. So tell everyone what it was like to be in Mobile, Alabama when that phone rang and New Orleans is now down.
Okay, so
I want this is a wild story, everybody.
Yeah.
The phone just rang.
Yes.
New Orleans is dead.
They're
as far as the
dead.
weather service. They're off the air.
Right.
Tell me what it's like to be the Sioux right now, Jeff.
So during Katrina's second landfall, what John just said occurred, and I actually happened to be the one who picked up the phone. It was happening on my 12-hour shift, and it was basically Southern Region headquarters in Fort Worth saying, "You are now both New Orleans and Mobile." Well, we anticipated that. Remember, we had Ivan. We took the Western Eye Wall the year before, and that, in my opinion, was more of a turning point than Katrina itself, because it used to be that Weather Service operations was kind of, it was not as transparent because of things like chat and, the DSS you do. It was more internal, in-house, and that was just, the way things were. But we really looked at all the things that we could improve after Ivan, and we had our what straight during Katrina. And I turned around, I told the staff, and I said, well, why don't we shuffle, person A over to position B, and, that type of thing. And we had our plan. It was on a sheet. We pulled out the sheet. Everybody knew their role. And then we later found out for the next 21 days, we kind of defined what DSS was all about when they were plucking people off of the rooftops. That was our office providing those briefings to the Coast Guard pilots on our field, Bates Field in Mobile, Alabama, which is where they were taken off from. And I lived in the flight path about 7 or 10 miles west of the airport, and it was night and day for days, the first 3 or 4 days, coming and going with helicopters that were, transported there to save people. And even in our products, you can look it up. It's on IEM chat. We started getting a wind because, see, the cell phone towers were down. We had ham radio operators, but they couldn't communicate. They were not getting any information like they were before. And so we had a person in our office who was dedicated to looking online and finding out what was going on from national news sources. And we got wind that people were taking tools up to their roofs and breaking out from the inside out to get on the roof. And we started putting that in our products. We feel like we saved lives by doing that.
Yeah. Oh, I remember there were people who drowned in their attics in Biloxi. I still can't
right.
get over that.
That's right.
Yeah, there were people because they thought it was not Camille. They had Camille in their head.
Yes. Yeah, in fact, my wife and I took a trip to Bay St. Louis the June before that, just a few months before. And we were sitting in a restaurant one night, and we're in Bay St. Louis where the train track crosses to go from Bay St. Louis over to Highway 90. And there was this old gentleman, and he goes, I just want to tell you what Camille did to this place. Camille, Camille, Camille. And I'll never forget that, because just like the first question that Bill asked about Frederick, now that's not the gold standard anymore here. But Camille is not the gold standard there anymore. It's Katrina.
I know. Absolutely true. Absolutely true.
Yeah, we
So
we had a similar experience, Jeff. Brian Peters and I were on the Mississippi coast the night before Katrina made landfall, and we were coming back to Mobile, and we went in the Burger King, which was open, which was amazing to me that it was open at 7 o'clock on Sunday night. And we talked to some people because it was full. And, he said, "Hey, why didn't you evacuate?" And they said, "Oh, it's not going to be as, nothing could be as bad as Camille." And we were like, and we left that restaurant, and I asked Brian, Brian, how many fatalities do you think we'll have in this hurricane? And he said, I think he said some crazy number like 250 or something. And I looked at him in shock. I was like, no way will we have 250 fatalities. And then we had what we had. It just was like surreal. Because I remember sitting in the television station van on that Monday morning, and one of the folks in our chat said, "Looks like New Orleans dodged a bullet." And I had just read the flash flood warning, where they said that the dike had been, or the levee had been breached. And I just said, not so fast, because I'm afraid that it's just beginning. The disaster is just beginning, because I knew how, vulnerable they were with those breaches to those levees if that ever happened. Because all I could think about was Betsy. And it just broke my heart. And by that Monday night, I was just devastated listening to WWL, because I was hearing things like, you know, the water's rising here. It should be going down, at our studios. And it's like, that's not a good sign. And then Tuesday morning, you wake up to Good Morning America and the helicopter shots. And it's like,
Yes.
it was an experience that I will remember as my Pearl Harbor probably for the rest of my life,
Well,
just
and
crazy.
like for our office, having had Ivan and Katrina, and both of those were agonizing 10 days out, watching them, knowing
Mhm.
that you were most likely going to get something serious out of both of those. And just a wobble one way or a wobble the other. They just steered, that Ivan particularly, the way it was steered. And it was almost a form of PTSD, but I just cannot say enough about that staff in Mobile. Um, Again, it was the people that made it happen, the services we provided, and we even got to a point with Katrina where employees were down to one or two tanks, or I mean, sorry, one or two trips to work because there was nowhere to get gas. And we had some help finally come in before a few of us ran out. And it was difficult because I was doing the logistics of both offices' operations, attending the daily calls with the region. But this is what I want to say. Mobile and Slidell have a long history of having a positive relationship with one another since the modernization. And we were sister offices. We're one another's primary backup. And if the shoe were on the other foot, they would have done it for us gladly. And, we knew what their employees had been through. And, we did everything we could to help them and ease their burden and their plight. And I feel like we did that. And, we just all got along so well. To watch them slowly get back on their feet, that was an eventual blessing, even though it took 2 or 3 weeks. But it was understandable. Some of them didn't have homes to go back to. So it took it a while to work itself out. And that forever changed the DSS trajectory for the National Weather Service in Mobile. That's not just sending someone to a football game. I'm not putting anyone down, but that's big time. And that went on for weeks, not a few hours. And it took stamina and it took duration, it took commitment, and it took heart.
Sure did.
I'm
So,
so glad you got that story out there, John Gordon. Thank you for bringing that to light because I've never heard any of that story.
well, let's continue a little more, Bill. So, Jeff, how long? James Spann is my hero. I think he can go 24 hours in a row on the green screen.
Oh.
But how how long were you quote unquote stuck at the office, Jeff Medlin?
I was able, okay, so before the landfall, I think I was able to get home. I was about 16 hours. I live west. There were some people who were across the bay who spent the night because of the surge. And remember what Katrina did when it made landfall. The winds on the southwest side of the circulation flooded the eastern shore. They got another surge event on the
That's
eastern
right.
shore of Mobile Bay. But there were some people who couldn't go home for that reason. I was there for 16 hours. I got out of there probably 1 or 2 p.m. The last thing I remember doing there, I was totally stumbling around, trying to stay awake, but was doing international interviews, which was extremely rare. And I was able to go home, and a person we knew that was a fireman had already cut their way through our neighborhood with the trees so cars could go back and forth. And I think I got home and collapsed. There was no air condition. And I collapsed on the sofa and I woke up when the sun was setting, it totally drenched in sweat from being in a hot house with no ventilation. And I got up and took a shower and went straight back into the office around 8 or 9 p.m. There were a lot of 12 and 13, 14-hour days after that, especially for the first week.
So, is that your record? I mean, you're a hurricane office, Jeff Medlin. What's your record, or anyone in the office? How long were they quote unquote stuck at the office?
I think it's some of the winter events that we've had, that 2013, 2014. I think there's people that were there 2 days because of the sleet. It was pure sleet, and it packed.
Okay.
And so probably the better part of 2 days for a few people, especially those who lived on the eastern shore.
Okay. Corey, what's your record for staying? How long have you had to stay?
It's probably the ice storm of 2014.
Okay.
I think I was here on campus. I lived that time 3 miles away, and there was no way to get home. Pete drove home, and he said as he was going up the hill at university, he was spinning tires the whole way. His truck was 4-wheel drive. Mine was not, and I said it's not happening. And so the next morning, that first morning, we woke up, and there's one place that does not close, Waffle House. And so we walked down and got breakfast at Waffle House, and then people were already out and about and driving around, and they were getting stuck coming up the hill on Old Shell Road. But yeah, I think 2 days inside the Mitchell Center, and I slept on the floor in coastal weather because a lot of people don't know we had just got the Barron broadcast software from Barron Weather at the university. They came in, installed, and Drew McCombs, which I think now works with James Spann with Alabama Weather Network, he got stuck here that day because of the ice storm. So I graciously told him to take the couch, and I think it was me, him, Andrew Murray were all here, and Andrew had brought his family up here because he had a young child that he was afraid that he'd lose power, and he lived out in Grand Bay. So he came up here, and we all spent the night in the Mitchell Center. And then I think the second day we finally got out and ventured out. And what I'll remember that I always check is always check your rooftops after an ice storm on your vehicle. Because as we were driving around, we were driving down Airport Boulevard, and all of a sudden I hear this scratching noise. And I looked at my rearview mirror, and a whole sheet of ice comes off the top of my truck, and I'm so thankful no car was behind me because when it hit the road, I mean, it just went everywhere. But yeah, that was a lesson learned that day. But yeah, and then obviously Sally's a close second. Um, being here, I think 18 hours before I was finally able to go home to see the damage that Sally did.
Okay.
So yeah, that's kind of the two longest times.
James, what's the longest you've been stuck?
Oh, I would say it was, goodness gracious. This is how old I am. This was the great 1982 ice storm. Bill Murray remembers this. Bill, you know the ice storm
Oh
I'm talking
yeah,
about.
I sure do.
January of 80, January of 82. It was a 5 days. Could not get out of the office, and you just keep going. And of course, I was younger back then, but this was a catastrophic ice storm. We had about 750,000 people with no power, infrastructure power out. The whole thing was horrible. So for me, 5 days.
Had I
It's
not
always
made the
ice.
call, had I not made the call this year, the snowstorm would have been the longest. I knew that me and another full-time employee both live on the Eastern Shore. And I said, if we drive over that Tuesday morning, we will not be able to go home until Friday at the earliest. And she had a daughter, and I had two small kids, and I was like, we're going to set up call forwarding. I had generator power at home, and I set up call forwarding because I knew the university, we have generator power here, and I knew that, AT&T fiber internet didn't even go down during Sally. If you had a way to plug your modem in and your little box, you had internet during Sally. And I did not know that until after the fact. So I made the call that our staff was going to work from home during the snowstorm this year. Otherwise, we would have been trapped here in coastal weather for 5 days.
Yeah, I believe that. So Jeff, you're done with the Sioux. You become the MIC. Is that a bit of a change, or is that about the same, Jeff?
Well, the last 3 to 4 years, remember the hiring freeze hit of my pseudom, so to speak. And I was acting meteorologist in charge so much that, it was almost like it was a gradual transition from what I had kind of already been doing. And yeah, but it still took a while to, once I became the MIC to, work with folks and make some changes that needed to be done. And I think we did pretty darn well for ourselves. I mean, our focus was always on products and services and customer service. And no matter what, even way before I was the MIC, that we had three others. And no matter what survey was done, going all the way back to Opal, George, and other weather events that we were included in, our relationship with the emergency management and media has always been near the top of the Weather Service. There has hardly ever been any type of conflict with our partners in that realm. And that's actually been written in survey assessments, or service assessments. So, that made it easy. And then, of course, the last year, I was the MIC, the Sioux, and the WCM before I became.
I've done that. I've done that too. It's not good. Do
It's
not
not
sign up for
good.
that,
And
anyone.
and I say that not because of me, but because if I didn't have people that were helping me out, I held down what little bit I could with the Sioux, but I had to really focus on leading the office because my
That's
new
right.
mission was people and all the things that go along with the responsibility of being responsible for everything.
That's
So
right.
that's not something you can shirk in your duties on. When you're in charge, you're in charge. and you're in charge of everything, and that's right on down to the
Everything.
property. So, so yeah, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. I just figured that when I got to 36 years, I didn't go out for any particular reason. I was pretty young, and 36 years is probably enough. And
It's a long time.
it's a
That's what I
long
did.
time. Exactly.
36, yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
And so, and I have enjoyed that. This team that we have here, I do not regret one bit. And gaining this private sector experience, the team we have here, they're it's wonderful. I mean, there's no internal squabbles or any. I mean, we just click on all cylinders with one another, like we're reading one another's mind. It's great.
So let me ask you this, Jeff, and I'll go to Nick, okay? You just retire as an MIC, and then you tell me that you're going to teach dynamics too. I almost fell out of my chair. I'm like, dynamics too. I don't think I could integrate anything today.
Yeah, well, part of that is because when you stayed in the Sioux world for so long, it gets ingrained in you, second nature type stuff. And I've developed several courses here to be able to teach them my own way. There was 4 of them
Yeah,
actually.
tell them the 4 classes you're developed.
Yeah,
Tell us the 4.
satellite is what I primarily have done. That I want to really make one of the best satellite programs in the country because you have to have that right mix between atmospheric radiation and satellite. You have to have that mix. You can't make the satellite course all about radiation. So that has been a challenge, and it's getting better. I'm in my second offering, but Dynamics 2 was one time, which I have taught Dynamics before back in '03. But then I also am now doing physical meteorology, and I developed a tropical meteorology course. So those are the 4 that I've done so far, and I'll be teaching physical next semester. I'm winding up satellite now.
Okay. Sounds good. Nick, you're on the air. Bring it on, buddy.
Yeah. Hey, so I want to kind of go back a little bit. I don't have a ton of tropical experience myself in terms of, being in the Gulf Coast, but I went through the remnants of Hurricane Ike in 2008. We had sustained winds of 50 to 60 here in Ohio. We had over 2 million customers without power, some for as long as 10 days. I will never forget or take advantage of, our resources like electricity ever again after that. But for somebody that maybe, again, just doing a little bit of research on what you guys do, for somebody that maybe comes to your neck of the woods and, maybe just doesn't quite understand what can happen, what kind of role do you guys play in, getting those folks prepared for things that they may have never experienced before? I guess I'm very curious just to see how that side works for what you guys do there.
Well, one of the things we did a few years ago was we created a mock storm event. The university had some significant turnover with the administration.
Mhm.
And so the safety person that I have a good working relationship with on campus approached us about doing a hurricane drill, hurricane preparedness drill, like a live hurricane mock exercise. And so Dr. Keith Blackwell came up with, we called it Hurricane USSA. I don't know where he came up with that, but
Sounds like injury.
we ultimately did a drill where we were not only sending out products to certain people on the list. We got our broadcast students involved. They did briefings of the graphics that we put together. And so that made people who had joined the university from afar, not very familiar with tropical cyclones, very quickly get acquainted to their procedures on campus of how to, prepare. And that was a 8 to 10 hour exercise. And we've done that with tornado drills in the past as well. So that's kind of a way we've done it with the university. We work with a lot of our clients with tropical forecast. One of the bigger ones is CSX Railroads. they, I mean, when you get a tropical system anywhere near their rail lines, they're on the phone with you and you're briefing them every day, if not twice a day. And, you know, that you got to be real familiar with the geography of where their rail lines are because you may not know the town. Um, and so and what we've learned over the last few years is it's not about the landfall anymore. You know, yes, that's very important, but it's also about the after effects once the storm moves inland. For me, I think Hurricane Ian was the big eye opener in that, with all the flooding in the Florida peninsula after the fact. And then obviously, 2024 with Hurricane Helene was just the tragedy that unfolded with that storm. I mean, if you, I mean, sometimes I have to go back and remember where Helene made landfall because of what happened up in the Carolinas and, you know, with all the tragedy of the rainfall that happened and the flooding and the mudslides and stuff like that. And here at Coastal Weather, we were talking about this well in advance. We were pushing the after effects of the storm as well as the landfall, but we were really trying to highlight the point. And Jeff worked really hard on that, trying to push out, you know, don't just focus on the landfall. There's going to be catastrophic consequences, you know, days after. And there was, unfortunately, it was just the unfortunate setup with Helene. So that's, and a lot of our clients, whether it be in the electrical industry, petroleum, chemical, a lot of them need 3 days in advance in order to have full shutdown procedures. You guys were talking about Hurricane Katrina. I was not working at Coastal Weather in 2005, but I've heard the stories from Dr. Bill and Dr. Blackwell. Mississippi Power lost 95% of their infrastructure in Hurricane Katrina. And the Coastal Weather Research Center tropical product took off after that because someone at Mississippi Power was interviewed about, you know, hey, what did you guys rely on during the storm? And they were like, well, we had several products, but Coastal Weather stood out the most. And we started getting phone calls after that storm. And this is the stories I've heard. We even had a phone call from an energy trading company in Minnesota that became a client of Coastal Weather going into the 2006 season. Now, I mean, when they called and said they were from Minnesota, it threw the guys here at the time off because they're like, hurricanes in Minnesota? But it was an energy trading company. And that's so that's kind of, you know, where some of the stories that I've learned over the years, and, you know, we've applied that to trying to get out the best information that we can, you know, and we have to do it in the sense that our clients can understand. You can't be, you know, when I graduated from South Alabama in 2011, I was trained to go straight into the Weather Service. Jeff brought up one limiting factor that prevented me from doing that, the hiring freezes. They all started when, you know, and so it took me a year and a half for a position at Coastal Weather to open, and that's how I got into the private sector side, you know, the hiring freezes. And I was already through synoptic meteorology when all that started. So I was like, I can't change majors now. But yeah, I mean, and so that's kind of how we handle things here with our clients. They know that we're a phone call away. A lot of our clients, especially CSX, has my personal cell number. And a funny story is that our relationship with CSX is so well that if you remember the flooding event earlier this year up in the Midwest, they called me and said, hey, we know this is outside of our agreement, but we need someone to brief us and give us more information on what to expect the next few days. And I told them straight up, I said, well, I'll be honest with you. I'm focused on the Southeast. That's where all of our clients is outside of the tropical. But I said, I'll do the best I can. And we had a briefing the next day, and there was a special weather service office in Louisville, Kentucky that had a very good link to the flood stages.
I remember
a
that.
PDF flood stages. And I gave them that link, and that was very valuable information to CSX. So good job,
I hate
John.
you to say that, didn't I?
No, but I mean, you just, that's how you have to adapt to things on the fly like that. And, you know, I kind of knew where some of the better information was. And I knew, given the many of years of seeing John Gordon speak at CCAPS, I knew that Weather Service office was the first one I could go to find information.
That's very nice of you. Thank you.
Yeah,
All right.
appreciate that.
So
Thank you.
Bill's got a giant question, the size of a
Giant,
Godzilla.
giant.
Yeah, so it's so giant that it requires some screen sharing. So Corey, I'm gonna throw this up there. This is the graphic that I'm working on in our system. And what you see here, of course, is the NOAA tide prediction, the lunar,
Okay.
right here. And then the output from the NOAA operational forecast system in green. Tell me how I can explain this to my audience, if you can help me interpret it. The tidal values there, and Jeff might can help explain too, you know, is that just that the ocean conditions are such that they're overriding the tidal conditions to some degree at this location at the Gulf State Park in Alabama? Is
Yeah,
that the way you would interpret this graphic?
yes. Yeah. So what happens here, Mobile Bay and the surrounding areas are a very shallow body of water. So wind stress plays a big role. Like you may notice earlier this week, or I'm sorry, last week with the north winds, tides were 1 to 1.5 foot below normal because all of the water from the wind stress was blown out of the bay, and of course that affects the estuaries and rivers like Dog River, Fowl River, Bon Secours, and so that's what you typically see, and you can look at it right off the bat and know whether it's pretty much when wind is playing a role. But there are times like when a tropical cyclone or maybe an upper level low is in the Gulf and that tidal piling occurs, that it can drive the water levels up. And you also can get a big slug of water coming down the delta. And if there's little change in high and low tide, and you're in a neap tide cycle, that can cause the water levels to go up from the freshwater discharge. So you just got to know what component is contributing to it.
And then talk to me for a second. And Corey, anything you want to add to that right there?
No, I mean, the biggest thing I always notice driving back and forth across Mobile Bay is the wind. I mean, you get a north wind, and I mean, you could almost walk in a good portion of Mobile Bay. I mean, because there's no water. I mean, I was always told the average depth outside of some of the channel, obviously, and some of the other deeper parts is roughly 5 to 8 feet. And so, that's the wind plays a big role in it. And then obviously any type of tropical cyclones, that'll throw it off as well. I mean, when I see this graphic, I think I just report what's actually occurring because it does fluctuate. I mean, you get a 10, 15 mile per hour wind, and it's gonna be different from what may actually be the prediction.
And so here you're basically just sort of damping out the effects of the lunar tide a little bit at some of those periods, because like when you're peaking that 2.95 foot actual tide, you're actually going into the lower lunar tide at that point. And
That's
that
right. That's
seemed
telling you something else
counterintuitive
is
to me.
going on. That's
Yeah,
telling you
okay,
that
good.
something else is going on.
And that's
So
probably just looking at that and knowing the upcoming forecast. My assumption is we're going to get into a strong southerly
southerly
wind
flow. Mhm.
coming up towards the end of the week, and so that's
Okay.
probably what's going to be the driving factor of being the high tide there.
Now, the important thing here is the datum, of course, and this is coming off the MLLW. Talk about that for a second and some of the other important datums that you look at, and tell me how it's easy to explain to my viewer what that that means.
Well, yeah. So the problem is it's always been an MLLW, and that means mean lower water. It's the 19-year average of the lowest of the low. You have an actual MLW, an MHW, and an MHHW. So you got the highest of the highs, the lowest of the lows, and what nautical charts are in, they're in MLLW, which is the mean low water. Okay, so what that is, it's kind of like telling you on nautical charts, this is the absolute bottom that it can get. You know, as far as the prediction goes. So most people have trouble, especially if there's a coastal flood advisory or a coastal flood warning that's out. They have trouble linking that, what they're seeing in the tide tables, to what they're experiencing on the beach, for example. So most people, when we talk to them in terms of inundation, we're not talking MLLW. We will talk MHHW, which is a proxy for mean sea level. So basically, if you're standing at the beach right in the surf zone and water's coming up to your toes, and you're at mean sea level, and then you crawl up to a 10 feet high dune, and then the water comes up to your toes on that 10 feet high dune, then you have 10 feet above sea level, if you follow me on that. So it's kind of confusing. The MLLW speaks to mariners, and the MHHW is what we use for the public to understand the effects of coastal flooding.
So how could I communicate that most easily to my viewer who's fairly savvy if they're going to the beach, if they live at the beach, if they live in
Right.
Mobile, Baldwin counties?
Yeah. So the best way I've found through the years, if they're looking at something that's MLLW, and I understand the technical part of this, but you're never going to convey it unless they can be looking at MHHW. Then you can tell them to liken that to sea level and their own elevation for where they are. They have to know. It's impossible to relate it to them unless they know the elevation of where they are and then what the water level is in terms of MHHW. You have to know those two things. It's almost like a tornado warning. You got to know what county you live in. So that's the problem with it right there. So, if you're saying that you're going to have 2 feet of flooding and that's above MSL or MHHW, which is being used as a proxy for MSL, that means it's 2 feet above where you're standing, what you would actually experience. But you have to subtract out your elevation where you are. Now, if you're on the beach, you're at sea level, so there's nothing to subtract. So that's the best I could tell you to explain that.
All right. Well, my quest for knowledge continues. Thank you for imparting that. John Gordon, thank you for giving me a minute there to look at my
Absolutely.
pretty
We're all in
graphic.
this together. We're all in this together. I'm turning this over to
worry
Eagle
about that.
One.
I worry about that beach ball blowing away. I mean, goodness, that thing was about to blow out of the screen there. All right, we do have to take a break here. So we're going to pause and hear from Tony Rice and the astronomy report. We've got Jen and This Week in Tornado History. We'll come back with email picks of the week and much more as WeatherBrains rolls along.
Looking beyond the atmosphere, here's Tony Rice with your astronomy outlook.
You might have missed something pretty cool in the world of spaceflight last week. A number of rockets capable of reuse went up by one. Blue Origin's New Glenn rocket lifted off from Cape Canaveral's Launch Complex 36 shortly before 4 p.m. local time last Thursday. The booster's first stage, dubbed Never Tell Me the Odds by Blue Origin engineers, separated from the upper stage a little more than 3 minutes later. It landed safely on the deck of Blue Origin's landing ship out in the Atlantic Ocean 9 minutes and 15 seconds after launch. This means New Glenn joins SpaceX's Falcon 9 as another rocket which can help bring down the cost to orbit by reusing the booster, the most expensive part. The first New Glenn mission back in January successfully made it to orbit, but the first stage was lost when the booster failed to relight. Last Thursday's launch also put a pair of spacecraft into orbit, which make up the Escape and Plasma Acceleration and Dynamics Explorers, or ESCAPADE mission. ESCAPADE will study Mars's magnetosphere and will help answer questions about how solar wind has contributed to atmospheric loss. It's a low-cost mission, with each spacecraft measuring about 3 foot by 3 foot by 5 foot and weighing only 200 kilograms. It's currently in a commissioning phase, with engineers checking out systems before sending them on their way in late 2026, with a planned arrival at Mars in September of 2027. Meandering paths like this are commonplace now, because the fuel they save over a more direct approach can be used to extend the lifetime of the mission, which in this case is about 3 years. Once ESCAPADE arrives at Mars, the pair will be put into similar orbits, separated by between 2 and 30 minutes, according to Rob Lillis, principal investigator for the mission at the University of California, Berkeley. This orbit will enable scientists to characterize the changing space weather conditions on a much shorter timescale than previous missions have enabled. They'll then shift to a second phase, where the two spacecraft will move into separate orbits, enabling researchers to gather cause and effect data, how what's left of Mars's thin atmosphere reacts in real time to space weather events. That's your Astronomy Outlook. Follow me at RTP Hokie for more spacey stuff like this.
This week in tornado history, one of the largest fall tornado outbreaks in U.S. history unfolded from November 21st through the 23rd, 1992. Over a 48-hour span, storms produced a deadly and far-reaching outbreak from the Gulf Coast to the Ohio Valley. A NOAA disaster survey identified 94 tornado tracks across 13 states. 6 were rated F4, 15 reached F3 intensity, and the outbreak caused more than 600 injuries and 26 fatalities. 15 of those deaths occurred in Mississippi, and 14 happened in mobile homes. Damage for the entire event was estimated at nearly $300 million. Georgia was hit hard during the peak of the outbreak. 11 tornadoes struck the state, including 2 rated F4. One of those violent tornadoes carved a 20-mile path through Cobb and Cherokee counties late on the morning of November 22nd. It began north of Powder Springs, moved to the northeast, briefly jogged to the northwest, and then recurved toward the northeast again. The tornado hit Kennesaw, where more than 325 homes and businesses were damaged or destroyed. Tractor trailers were overturned on I-75. In Cherokee County, a church on Highway 92 was hit during services, but no one was injured. Roughly 200 homes had some degree of damage, and an industrial park in Woodstock sustained the worst losses, with damages estimated at over $2 million. The tornado finally dissipated after striking the Hickory Flats area. In all, the Cobb-Cherokee tornado caused 46 injuries, 34 of them in Cobb County.
Well, 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 it's time now, ladies and gentlemen, to dig into the good old email inbox.
All righty. Thanks, everyone, for all your emails. We really appreciate it. The first one coming in from Keith, and he says, Brains, I'm with Jen Carfagno. Dew point rules. It seems to me that the dew point correlates much better with human comfort than does humidity, but finding a forecast aimed at the general public that includes the dew point is nigh impossible. How did humidity come to get top dog honors over dew point? And this is from Keith, who has made himself a candidate for the Dew Point Devo, which, of course, is the male version of a diva. So thank you, Keith, for that. And then we had an email that came in from Ross about the Portland radar outage, and just thought this would be a good topic for maybe some discussion here in regards to the KRTX had a mechanical failure this week that was repaired on November 14th after several days down in what is a stormy season in the Pacific Northwest. Might be an interesting topic since lots of this hardware must be aging.
I am willing to say a couple things. Jeff Medlin, maybe you want to say something. But during a government shutdown, each administration handles the shutdown differently. Remember those fun days, Jeff? All those great calls? Who's accepted? Who's not accepted? Can you repair this? Can you repair that? Are preventive maintenance is allowed? Remember all that, Jeff? And I don't know how Portland, their staffing is, their electronics technicians are. One thing you have to think about is the parts supply from the conditioning center, wherever they're getting these parts. And if you don't have a part, I know this for I won't call out an office because I don't want James Spann to get more hate. He's got enough hate. But there is an office that is missing an ASOS part that has gone on now for almost 3 months. Okay. It's not Portland. I do not send this to the Portland office. I mean, each shutdown is completely different, Jeff. Do you want to say anything more? I just don't know the details.
You're good.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, I think you nailed it. I mean, I don't really have anything to add in that realm. You're right. It's different and the circumstances vary depending on what's going on. And as you said, each administration handles it differently.
One big part, all maintenance is the flow, the supply chain flow. One thing, just for anyone, our parts are getting old. This is 1988. Well, it came in the 90s, but it started in the 88. But I mean, it's pretty old, isn't it? You weren't born. Were you there, Corey? You weren't even born in 88.
86. I was born in 86. So 2 years.
Yeah.
Now, I will tell you, you bring up something interesting about a radar going down, and Jeff probably remembers this very well. The April 2014 flood event, the Mobile radar was struck by lightning.
Mm-hmm.
And then the ASOS station also went down. And then the ASOS station at Pensacola went down. And so at the time, Dr. Bill was wrapped up in court cases. And you had to use radar data from Eglin and Slidell in order to get the best guess of what occurred. And even then, it was still, I mean, thank goodness for Cocoa Rods, because you got much higher values over in the Escambia County, Southern Baldwin County. And so sometimes it's not government shutdown, it's weather related that, unfortunately, they can't get it back up and running. And there was important data lost that day of that event. And, fortunately, we had the radar, and that was, I think some of them had dual pole technology then, but I'm trying to remember that. But
That's the one where we had 20 to 25 inches of rain in 9 hours.
Yeah.
Big time.
I think that's the one where I learned that you better make sure you have your drainage hose cleared out on the sunroofs of your vehicle. Otherwise, water will pile up and you'll be driving down the road, and next thing you know, you got water pouring in your truck because the sunroof drainage hose are clogged. I've learned that. So, but yeah, that's an interesting question.
Yeah, thank you so much, guys. And we appreciate all your emails. Email at weatherbrains.com for all your show suggestions, comments. Make sure we get those international ones in as well, because John Gordon is looking for your email international. Back to you, James.
All right. So let's do picks of the week here on the 17th of November. And let's just start with Nick. Sometimes I'll start with our guest panelists. Nick, I'm going to put you on the spot. Give us something cool, something weather-related. Website, data source, hardware, anything. Go.
For me, there's when we talk about space weather, I think there's obviously a lot of miscommunication and a lot of a lot of misinformation, and I've seen it even after this G4 solar storm that we had here recently. But a nice website that I've come across is spaceweatherlive.com. Shows you a lot regarding the magnetic field. Is it north? Is it south? Talks about how strong the solar winds are. And so for me, like being able to look back, last 6, 12, 24 hours to try to help communicate, hey, this is a really cool website. You can go on and check for yourself. When we talk about, hey, magnetic field's got to be flipped south, here's a great place to go look at that. You can look back over the last 24 hours, kind of see what we're talking about, and kind of illustrate why we're saying the Northern Lights were being a pretty good possibility. And of course, that's only one part, but I like that website personally.
Excellent. And all of these picks, by the way, will be on the website, weatherbrains.com, in the show notes. My pick, a lot of you, did y'all see the announcement today that Google is coming out with their Weather Next 2 model? which AI and by golly, what they had this hurricane season performed very well. So we'll have a link to what they're doing up on weatherbrains.com. But it's very, very interesting. All right, Kim, Commissioner, what's your pick of the week? Go.
Well, following up on the space weather theme, I'm going to pick SWPC, the Space Weather Prediction Center's Facebook page. They started to do a really neat thing with this past G4 storm where they would do little Facebook lives and have little explainers about what was going on. It was their service meteorologist, like sort of the WCM equivalent at SWPC, and they're really pushing hard to do more public-facing communication. And I thought that what he did with Sean Dahl was really, really nice in providing updates through the event. So in the future, they're looking to do more of those. And if you find yourself hearing about space weather events and you kind of want to know, well, what are the forecasters really saying? What does this all mean? If you need a little bit of someone to help guide you through what the resources Nick provided, that's a really great website. That one is one that a lot of they're actually space weather chasers, aurora chasers, and that's one of their favorite websites and apps. If you're having a tough time sort of decoding what's going on there, flip to SWPC and there might be a human who's there to help walk you through it.
I did see some of those. I thought those were outstanding. Just very well done. The timing was good. Everything was great. But again, we'll put these up on weatherbrains.com. Jen, what is your pick of the week?
Well, we got an email that came in from Joey, and great link. I'm sure a lot of folks have seen this, but it was the Volnado at the Kilauea volcano in Hawaii. Very impressive. And Joey mentioned that he had the opportunity to go to Hawaii in 2015 and visit Kilauea, and it looks completely different now due to all the eruptions. So, Joey, thanks for sending that to us. He also says, thanks for all you do for the Weather Enterprise, and we couldn't do it without you and all of the Weather Brains fans. Thank you.
Awesome. John Gordon, the Great American. What's your pick of the week?
Thanks, Eagle. Good to see you. So, what a great show tonight. I want to thank the Mobile folks. That could be a pick of the week right there. Corey and Jeff are the real deal. And I'm so glad you guys came out. So, my pick of the week is a little space theme with Kim. We had great northern lights, right? Who saw the northern lights? Wasn't it just beautiful? Just beautiful. But all these people who have nothing better to do are sending false AI pictures of the northern lights. And that's not nice. It's not nice. Not nice at all. Kim's not happy. So one thing that people were putting false pictures of the noctilucent clouds and the nacreous clouds. And I found something on space.com that is excellent. It's the best source I've ever seen on the noctilucent clouds. Tells you how to observe them, tells you everything you know. It's almost like Jeff Medlin wrote it. That's my pick of the week.
Awesome. It'll be up on weatherbrains.com. All right, Jeff and Corey, now the floor is going to belong to you. Jeff, let's start with you. Give us something good. You're a seasoned veteran, Sue, MIC, private sector hero. What will you give us something good? We need to know.
My pick of the week, looking forward into the future, has got to be the USA Meteorology Program. The students that come out of this program are outstanding. The staff is outstanding. They are ready to forecast upon graduation when they hit the street. And I know that from two different, personally, being part of the staff, number one, but number two, being in MIC all the years and interacting with the volunteers in our office, and seeing some of the people who have come through the program go on to great places. There's MICs out there that are from USA. One right here, Jason Beeman, that's at the National Weather Service in Mobile. He was a USA grad. So my pick of the week is the USA Meteorology Program for putting together a fine education for the last 20-something years, and second to none at this point.
Fantastic. We'll put links up on weatherbrains.com. All right, Corey. Go. I know you got something good.
So
I feel it.
I recently learned from one of our clients, and although we're entering the cooler months, I started doing research after I got a phone call, but it seems OSHA is now about to introduce a new federal standard for heat index criteria. And this client called me and wanted to know beginning next year if we could give them alerts to when the heat index reached 95 degrees. And I was like, that's every day in the summertime here. But I don't have a link for it just yet, but I'm still trying to learn more about it myself. But I did learn that the first trigger, that's kind of two trigger areas for their standard that they're looking at, 80 degrees Fahrenheit for an initial warning, and then 90 degrees Fahrenheit. And I know the criteria is different depending on where you live for heat index, advisories and things like that. And then one final thing I do want to add, and I'd probably get in trouble if I didn't mention, but the University of South Alabama Meteorology Program also has a MesoNet program that's run by Dr. Kimball and her staff in the USA MesoNet. And I can't go without mentioning that tonight because she recently got a federal grant to expand the MesoNet program from now, I think it's either 26 or 28 stations to, I think they're adding 15 to 20 stations further inland across some of the more rural areas of South Central and Central Alabama over the next couple of years. So I do want to mention that, and I think that's going to go a long way with adding some data to the models for severe weather forecasting. So
that's outstanding. Keep pushing it north. Keep bringing it north. All right. I
I
mean,
know that's what she wants to do, and I know Auburn has a program, and I believe TVA has some stations, and I know there's a push to try to get all those combined to where maybe we can get a Alabama Mesonet, program here in a few years.
it needs to happen sooner than later. So, Corey, one more question: have you ever been to the 431 Sports Arena?
No, I have not, but I will tell you that's the
Uh-oh.
wrestling arena, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I
Would
have not. I've heard stories about it. I
I,
actually met the guy that ran that facility when I worked
wow.
for the city of Boaz Parks and Rec Department a few
Wow.
times. Yeah, that's a national landmark in Boaz you bring up there. And I
It is.
believe
I
that
think
was
we should.
hit by a tornado a few years ago.
It was. They had the major damage at the thing. But I think, Bill Murray, we should originate WeatherBrains from the 431 Sports Arena in Boaz, one on a Saturday night. On a Saturday night, that's when things happen there. But enough there before we get in trouble. So, Bill Murray, what's your pick of the week? Go.
Yeah, I'm glad you cleared that up, James. I was afraid you were going to say it was a cockfighting arena or a dog fighting place or something. So I'm glad you cleared that up.
No,
James, first,
perfectly legal.
I'm going to screen share my first pick of the week right here. This is from our network last week. Stunning photograph from our Skycam. Nothing to do with AI. Just a beautiful image. And it was like this for how long, James, would you say? 2 or 3 hours at least?
Yeah, a good
It,
3 hours. Yeah.
and the video is just spectacular of the aurora dancing. I mean, literally. You can catch it on our network right now. It is just beautiful. My actual pick of the week will be the current edition of Weatherwise magazine that came in the mailbox today. Great photo contest, great story about reducing lightning deaths in Africa, and a little blurb in there about your little snowstorm, Mobile folks, that happened back in the early part of 2025. And our good friend Drew McCombs texted me during the show and said thanks for mentioning him sleeping on the couch down there during the 2014 Snowmageddon. So I guess it was an Ice Mageddon, apparently, from what you said, Corey. But many thanks to John for helping with all these guests. He's sort of officially now becoming the co guest booking officer, and I appreciate that after many years. Next week, Fox Weather will be the focus of the show, and their national correspondent, Robert Ray, I'm very pleased to announce will be our guest, who is someone I really admire. So Robert will be joining us, and one other luminary from their program will be with us. And so that's going to be super exciting. And then the following week, Kim has the program, and Owen Shihei will be joining us. So, Kim, you want to say? Oh, Kim's already gone. I lost her.
She had
Must
to
have had.
go. She
She
she had
probably
to
had.
go.
She,
It's an
her
emergency
husband.
down the hall.
Her
Yes.
husband has an expiration date. When these shows run like an hour and 40 minutes, I think we exceed it. But then we'll be cruising out into the future with a lot of great shows that John will be putting together. So I'm very excited about those. So that's just some of the excitement coming up in the next few weeks here on Weather Brains, James.
So Nick, how can people follow you? Plug your social accounts. Go.
Yeah, so you guys can follow me, meteorologist Nick Dunn, on Facebook. Also, well, I mean, I can just either drop for you guys in the chat if you want. I can drop them in the links for you. But for those of you watching, I'm on Facebook. I'm on X. That should also be, I believe, meteorologist Nick Dunn as well. And then Instagram in Dunn underscore WHIO. Those are my three primary ones that I'm on. And my goal is in 2026 to broaden my horizons with additional social media platforms to just kind of build on, kind of hoping to build up on having the digital seal. And again, very thankful to have had an opportunity to be in front of some of the legendary weather icons here, if you will, in the United States tonight. So very thankful to be a part of that. And so yeah, you guys can follow me there and be more than welcome to interact and chat with you.
Awesome. Well, Nick, thank you for the time. And again, this has been a really good show tonight. Again, thanks to Corey and Jeff and everybody for taking the time to be on the show tonight. If you're new here, we're typically on the air Monday nights at 8 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Central. And there is a video version. You can watch it live, watch the replay if you'd like on YouTube, youtube.com/weatherbrains. But we know that most of you listen to the produced audio podcast. Whether you watch or listen, thank you. And if you want to get in touch with us, ask a question, have a comment, we'd love to hear from you. Email at weatherbrains.com. That's our email address. On behalf of the entire WeatherBrains crew, I'm James Spann. Thanks for listening. Have a great week and God bless. Great show.
Yeah,
Awesome.
thank you, Nick. Thank
Thank
you,
you
Corey.
all.
Good to see you, Jeff.
That picture you guys posted last night on